We got a lot going on. This is a really big show. It looks like Elon Musk is getting closer and closer to getting Twitter after all. I'm going to tell you all about the financing he has lined up, as well as the increase in the offer. Board's going to have a hard time saying no to this one. Plus, great earnings out of Tesla, bad news out of Netflix. The stock is absolutely getting crushed, and people are wondering, maybe the streaming business isn't all it was cracked up to be. We see actually that CNN is getting out of it. Were they spooked by Netflix, or just the fact that they weren't getting any subscribers? Plus, we got to talk about home prices. Wow, just through the roof, up 15% in the last year. We're going to talk about what that means for you, for your home, what it means if you're trying to get into the market, and mortgage rates going up too. And then, of course, Jack Dorsey, the original founder of Twitter, is just, unleashed lately. He's saying some things, taking aim at CNN that, I don't know, you might, if you were a normal person, even get banned from Twitter for. We're all over it today. Good to have you here. If you are watching this on Rumble or on YouTube, you can see I'm out of my normal location. We're on the road here, so thank you again for joining. If you're listening on Apple iTunes or on Spotify, make sure you subscribe, and then head over to the video channel and make sure you subscribe there too. Just hit subscribe. I'd love to have you. Anyway, I do want to point out that portions of today's program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals than now, clearly, with all the inflation going on. So go to legacypminvestments.com for more. Again, that's legacypminvestments.com for more. Okay, let's get into it. So Elon Musk sweetening the deal here. He says he's come up with the financing, which is really pretty significant. He's been clearly working on that. Morgan Stanley was his banker. Morgan Stanley, as well as a group of other banks, they have lined up the financing with him, and he's got the means to do this. He's also got the means to actually sweeten the deal by about $3 billion. So $25.5 billion in financing is coming from this group of banks, as I said, led by Morgan Stanley, including a $12.5 billion worth of margin loan against Tesla shares that Elon owns. The rest of the money is actually coming out of Elon's pocket. $21 billion he's going to spend right out of his own pocket to get this done. $3.5 billion more than the original $43 billion offering. So translation here, this guy's serious, and it's going to be increasingly hard for the board to turn this one down. There is a board meeting coming up later next month. Jack Dorsey, his term is actually expiring. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this meeting is going to be pretty significant. Now, Elon has threatened, you've seen some of the tweets, love me tender, for example, or blank in the night, tender in the night. He's been hinting that he would have a tender offering, which would mean he would take this vote to the shareholders, right? And they would actually be the ones to vote on whether or not they wanted to sell for the new price, of course, which is $46.5 billion. The board, as we've said before, as if you've been watching the show, they put in a poison pill which would prevent Elon or anyone from single-handedly gaining more than 15% in the company. But if he takes this to a vote to shareholders, the shareholders will at least be able to make their viewpoint clear, and then the handwriting is on the wall for the board. Now, the board doesn't have to go for it, right? The board could say, forget about it. We still don't think it's in the best interest of the shareholders, but it makes it a whole lot harder, right? Because there's a lot more pressure on the board. You can anticipate a lot of shareholder lawsuits, of course. The other option here in all of this is a little bit longer, right? Because it would take some time to actually vote these board members out. But there's the option of saying, okay, we're going to vote them out when the shareholder meeting happens in late May. They could vote 3 of them out, but you still need to get an additional 2, knowing that there's 9 on the board. Few different paths here, but ultimately I think that there's going to be so much pressure on the board, so much pressure to do a deal. It's just going to be a question now of who gets it done, right? Because now everybody's circling. They're saying, wait a second, there's actually some value here. And you also have people circling saying, I don't want Elon Musk to get it, because Elon Musk, oh gosh, he's a little too First Amendment for us. Keep in mind, Elon has pointed out that Twitter has effectively become that de facto town square. And because it's become such a public forum, in his view, we need to err on the side of allowing speech as opposed to shutting it down constantly. And so his view is very much at odds with some of these sort of liberal elites in Washington that want to be able to control the narrative. So this is a big story, and it's not going away. And I think he's got a real shot at getting it. I think it would be a good thing, by the way. You know where I stand on this, for society, if he does get it. He's got more money to play with too. Tesla shares absolutely, soaring today, and wonderful news that the company just reported first quarter earnings, profit up 81%, earnings of $3.22 per share, revenue of nearly $19 billion, $18.76 billion. So wow, pretty massive, significant there. Of course, there are some hurdles in the future. The company pointed out the challenges in the supply chain and being able to get all the stuff that they need, right, to make the cars, and that could weigh on earnings as we move forward, but nonetheless a really, really strong performance. While Tesla shares are doing well, let's take a look at Netflix here, because this thing is just cratering. People are beyond disappointed here after the company said that it lost 200,000 subscribers. It's actually the first time the company's lost subscribers in a decade. So they've never lost before. Now, they're saying not only did they lose the 200,000, they're actually going to lose more, like 2 million more subscribers. In fact, it's going to end the year with 7.8 million less subscribers than Wall Street had originally anticipated, and that's obviously a problem. I mean, you know, as they say, expectations are everything, and so investors were expecting or anticipating that there were more subs coming every single month, every single quarter. Now people are saying, well, maybe 222, that's the number, 222 million. Maybe you're not going to get more than that. Don't forget, Netflix is kind of expensive. Elon Musk, by the way, taking a bit of a swipe at Netflix, a jab, saying, well, you know, they've just gone too woke. There are people that believe that. In fact, over on my locals channel, I encourage you to go there, trishregan.locals.com. We were talking about this in one of the exchanges there, and a lot of people were making the point that they just don't like Netflix anymore. They feel like it has gone too woke, and, you know, they've got so much other stuff, they don't need it. That's a problem too, right? Competition. I mean, you think about HBO in this space, you think about Disney in this space, there's a whole lot more competition. Netflix is no longer the only game in town, and people they've got more choices. And so that means they've either going to come up with content that you just have to have, or they've got to find new revenue streams. It's one of the things that they are talking about now. Maybe they could have a free Netflix with ad-based revenue coming into the company. I mean, I do give the CEO, Reed Hastings, some credit on that front. I think that he's been innovative from the beginning, but he needs to innovate more. This may be a case of going back to basics effectively, right? Because you're going back to basics and saying, how do I make money in this business? Maybe it's the plain old ads. I offer a free subscription. Therefore, I also get people interested in my product. Maybe later down the road, they can upgrade to the bigger thing, to the Netflix with no ads. But I'm amazed in some ways how dumb Wall Street was on this, right? Because, guys, look, I mean, you should have seen it coming. The pandemic's over, right? People are no longer sitting home binge watching Netflix anymore. So there had to be a change. The other thing that I've just been amazed that nobody really picked up on, and frankly that the company should have been more proactive about this all along. They say they're going to be now, is the password sharing, right? Everybody's sharing passwords apparently on Twitter. In fact, this was an amazing number. They said that there's only 100 million households with passwords using 220 million different users and locations. So that's kind of an issue, right? You got to figure out the workaround there to make sure that the password sharing is not costing the company. So there's a lot of challenges ahead. Again, lost 40% before all this news came out, tanked again. Interestingly enough, Bill Ackman, who runs Pershing Square, he actually bought in to the company. Believe it or not, back in January, like I said, I'm not sure what all these Wall Street people were thinking. Again, the pandemic was over, guys. It was over and people were going back to work. But nonetheless, you know, people were buying in, and the stock was soaring, and now it's coming down to earth. It may be coming down to earth so much that you might want to start taking a little look at it here, because while there may be additional downside in the months to come, I do think that the management team is probably going to roll up their sleeves and try and find new ways to make money. And let me just throw this out there. I'm just throwing it out. You know, the metaverse is a big deal. And there's the possibility, because they've been so innovative in the past, that maybe they look to acquire a metaverse-style type company that could actually perhaps transition them into new things. Anyway, I wouldn't completely write them off, but I think that the truth is that this is going to be a challenged company in the coming months for sure. I want to turn to another story right now that is pretty significant and I think affects so many of you, and that's home prices. Home prices soaring now to a new record, up 15% from this time last year. Really, really incredible. And on the surface, while that seems great, I would only caution that you are in an environment where mortgage rates are going up as well. So when mortgage rates go up, it means theoretically people can afford less home, right? So don't be surprised if you see some softening there in prices in the future. Now, the one caveat here is if the Federal Reserve were to come in and say, you know, we're actually not that interested in raising rates the way we originally anticipated. We're a little concerned it's going to really spook the market. So maybe we won't do that after all. Already, you know, this week we saw a couple of Fed board governors, not voting members, but you know, important enough people at the Fed, telegraphing that, saying, well, maybe we don't need to raise as many times. You know, so if they don't actually follow through and raise, well, then this inflation thing continues to go on and on and on, and home prices, you know, may still go up. That's a problem for people that are trying to get into the market for the first time, but, you know, hey, good, I guess, for those that have a home right now. So meanwhile, mortgage rates, this is the one thing that sort of clouds it all, because mortgage rates have been increasing, and so now we're seeing above 5% really for the first time in years, so that's rather significant. Amid all of this, it brings me to one of our wonderful advertisers, new advertisers on the program that I think that it's worth, you know, thinking about right now, and that's whether or not you can find a way to lower your mortgage in this environment. In other words, you don't have a lot of time, right? Time is of the essence. As mortgage rates move higher, if you have a chance of getting that home equity out of the home, it may make sense. You can give the family-run business, American Financing, a call. American Financing is America's home for home loans. They give you a free mortgage review. They'll give you custom loan options before moving forward. There's no pressure, there's no obligation, no upfront or hidden fees, just a conversation around ways to save you possibly thousands of dollars a month. I mean, you add all that up, it could be tens of thousands of dollars long term. So you can give them a call to learn more. Remember, if you start soon, again, I think time is really important here because of the direction of mortgage rates. The good news is, of course, home prices are higher. Give them a call at 1-888-504-0507. Again, that's 1-888-504-0547. You can also visit them at americanfinancing.net. This is really something, this next story. I appreciate this. You know, I had kind of written Jack Dorsey off, but lately he's becoming a little bit more entertaining and perhaps a little bit more authentic. There were some pretty strong words, tweets, thoughts from Jack Dorsey out this week. He was alleging in an exchange on social media, on none other than Twitter, the company he founded, that he's on the board of and is about to step down from, that CNN created conflict during protests in Ferguson, Missouri. Remember that? Way back in, I guess it was 2014. So this was a thread about CNN and fake news, and Dorsey said, and I quote here, "I know this from being on the streets of Ferguson during the protests and watching them try to create conflict and film it, causing the protesters to chant FCNN. It all started because CNN's media reporter, Brian Stelter over there said, and I quote, Tucker Carlson is always selling the same thing. This was in reference to a piece that he tweeted out about how Fox was trying to effectively sell doubt. And Dorsey wrote back and said, and you are all selling hope? In other words, like, I think he gets it. Like these mainstream media companies, they're all trying to sell something. And it by the way, is not hope. I mean, he's being sarcastic there because, you know, CNN is on one side of things, you get Fox on the other, but they're all kind of, this is why I love, by the way, independent media. Again, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and to this podcast. But they're all kind of, they've got bigger agendas. Anyway, Newsmax's Correspondent Alex Salvi took to his Twitter account and accused Dorsey of trying to defend Carlson. And then Dorsey responded saying, you know what, quote, not defending a thing. And added up that he was just holding up a mirror. So just a mirror at what they're all trying to do. And that's part of the problem, right? Like that's part of the problem with media today, the sensationalism in all of it, and that they're all trying to just make you feel this emotional response. And frankly, I don't think that, you know, it's fair for the left to say, oh, the right's the only one doing that, when you see that all the time there on the left. And look, it's an important time, and I think that if Elon Musk is successful in his bid for Twitter, hopefully there are some things that could change. I mean, I think the algorithms have to change, as he said, erring on the side of allowing speech, right, as opposed to shutting it down, and having that diverse speech out there. Because how are we ever going to be able to debate any topics if we're all in our little silos, right? And they're like hate-filled silos. That's not right. That's wrong. It has to change. And what I love about this story with Twitter is there's an opportunity here from both a business perspective and, of course, a societal perspective, in that society would be improved if you have better dialogues. And by the way, the company hasn't been able to figure out how to make any money. They've been adding users, but they've never figured out really how to monetize them. So this is a chance for all these things to come together. You need somebody smart. You need somebody innovative to be in charge. I want to take just a minute and tell you about one of our newest sponsors on this program, the Association for Mature American Citizens, AMAC as it's known. This is an organization that's looking out for you and me and for every American that cares about values that I'm pretty sure you care about. Things like freedom, faith, family. AMAC is working in Washington and throughout the country to make sure that these values are preserved. And guess what? You can join that group of more than 2 million people by just signing up at $16 a year. You get all kinds of discounts on travel, on restaurants, on hotels, cell phone plans, you name it. So the money is well worth it, and you know it's going to a good cause. So go to amac.us/Regan so that we can have a voice together. Again, that's amac.us/Regan. It's worth it. We've been talking about all this inflation in the economy, whether it's home prices going up 15% or just food prices going up as much as they've been, or, well, consumer prices going up overall 8.5% in the latest month. Highest number we've seen in 40 years. So we do have an inflation problem, which is why I keep saying, you know what, if you want to try and guard against this inflation, which basically has become increasingly embedded into our economy, you want to look at investing in gold. And it's the reason why I'm proud to tell you about Legacy Precious Metals, because this is a company that can help you find a gold-backed IRA, which will help you in turn even out some of those fluctuations that you would see as a result of inflation. I mean, don't forget the value of our dollars keeps going down. The more money government prints, well, the less value those dollars have. In fact, if you compare and contrast the purchasing power of a dollar in 1972 versus a dollar today, what you find is it's going to take nearly $700 to buy you the same amount of stuff that would have cost $100 back in 1972. So we have, over the long term, increasingly a problem. And look, if you ever want to retire and not keep working every single day of your life, you're going to have to make sure that you've provided for the inflation that's coming. And it's the reason why I encourage people to go to Legacy Precious Metals, legacypminvestments.com, or give them a call. I promise you they'll take good care of you. 1-866-589-0560 is their number, 1-866-589-0560, and make sure that you are investing in gold today. Thank you so much, again, for listening to the show, for watching the show, for subscribing to the show. It's great to have you here. I think I'll be back in the studio tomorrow. Otherwise, you'll be visiting me in something like this again. But great to have, as I said, all of you here. And we'll talk again tomorrow about all this.